Hello and welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies have to offer and have a little talk about them. I am not Ben Errington, he is poorly. My name is Andy Conduit Turner, and I'm your host today, joined by a very special guest. She is a PhD student who spends her time studying cyclones all day and is a horror fan, gorging herself on all things horror and spooky while doing some knitting. Not necessarily something she recommends, as jump scares can often lead not only to drop stitches but also to needle stick injuries. It is Holly Moore. Hello, Holly. How you doing?
Hiya, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am great, thank you. IT issues aside that we've spoken about off pod, we am doing great. And how about you?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, had a few IT issues myself, so it's all good.
Hopefully, all of those are terrible memories of our past, not reoccurring issues of our future, real life horrors that we face every day. Um,
Exactly.
For those of you who listen every week, you may have heard us mention Holly a couple of weeks ago. We were lucky enough to meet her in person, out in the wild, at Thought Bubble Comic Convention. I mean, we can touch on that first. Do you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was really good this year. I've only been this year and last year, and it was actually so nice, obviously with like the code restrictions reduced, being actually able to see people and have like proper conversations with people. And yeah, it was really great to meet you guys in person, like long time fan.
Oh, geez. Oh, thank you. I think sometimes the three of us just think, oh, do we record this? And just, it's just a good excuse to catch up with your friends and have a chat. So it's really nice when you meet someone that listens, let alone someone that likes it. So thank you. And yeah, very nice to have you join us this week. Hopefully, well, this will be the first of a couple of appearances at very least. We've got to get you on when the whole gang's all together at some point as well. But hopefully I will suffice for today. And we can talk about a lovely horror movie. But first, as is tradition, I'm picking up the admin in Ben's absence. So let me begin with a little bit of horror news. I guess I'll begin the news with a question, Holly. Are you a Shudder subscriber yourself?
I'm not at the moment. Being a poor student, I can't really afford another subscription, but I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, tis the season. I mean, surely if you're a true friend or family member of Holly, you'd be listening along to this podcast and to see her performance and appearance on new media. I reckon if you're looking to get her a present of any kind, an annual Shudder subscription would be an ideal present for anyone. Anyone listening along for Holly or anyone else, because Shudder Ultimate Parent Company AMC have announced a number of layoffs, and it has affected some Shudder staff this week in news, based on the company's overestimation of what they would do, and how they would perform against streaming services. Now, I think, as you already mentioned, there are a lot of streaming services out there. The average person cannot possibly absorb them all. But of all
Mm,
the ones that to be at risk, I mean, of course, we're going to say this on a horror podcast, but it feels like this is one that we really want to try and protect because there are an awful lot of generalist streaming services, whereas the kind of content we've seen coming out of Shudder has been really great representation of the genre. We've had some really great original content coming out of it, both documentaries and movies. And it's built a lot of community around it as well, which is unusual for a streaming platform, which are typically just the faceless platforms that you enjoy content on. So now is probably a good time to anyone listen if you don't already have a Shudder account. One, be vocally supportive of how much you are interested in it online, and pick up a subscription for everyone. Honestly, probably the most value for money I get out of any of my subscriptions today. Um, yeah, there we go. I
yeah,
mean,
it's definitely going on my Christmas list now.
there you go. Hopefully, we've managed to put it on there for you. I will reiterate again, if you know Holly and are listening to this, what you're playing at. Come on, what a great surprise! Um, Other pieces of news I have, we've seen a couple of big announcements in the last week as well. Movies from a couple of big horror names right now. So Brandon Cronenberg, we had a trailer for his new movie Infinity Pool. that came out just a couple of days ago at time of recording. Have you managed to catch this trailer yet, Ali?
I haven't yet, no.
I literally just managed to sit and watch it properly. I managed to watch it in passing. I managed to watch it properly just on while my computer was resetting a moment ago. Um, yeah, it looks fantastic. Again, your mileage may vary with trailers, but if you'd already seen Possessor, the kind of body horror and strange sci-fi twists that we come to expect from a Brandon Cronenberg movie, like his father before him, yeah, it looks like an interesting piece where we're seeing our main character looks like they're experimenting with human cloning, and then maybe it sort of goes from a necessity to kind of a depraved body horror kind of sci-fi world that they fall into from that vastly rising icon of horror. Mia Goth is in there as well, so I think we're
Oh
on
wow.
onto a winner already. We've also just had a very cryptic reveal of one of A24's next horror movies. It's Ari Aster of Hereditary and Midsummer. I would say probably some of the more intense mainstream horror movies that are available today. He has a new movie coming out called Beau is Afraid, which is going to star old mate Joaquin Phoenix, and we have very little detail so far, other than a kind of uncanny CGI boy on a poster, which has just been released in the last few hours at time of recording. Yeah, are you?
Very interesting.
What's your mileage with the likes of Midsummer and Hereditary? Holly, are you a fan, or is that not the type of subgenre you enjoy?
Do you know what? I actually haven't seen Midsummer or Hereditary yet, which is crazy. That's definitely something that's on my list. I've been watching a lot of I guess like older or like classic horror films recently.
I mean, this is the perfect segue to jump into it, and don't be ashamed. Like, if you've not watched a particular horror movie, I have not seen Hereditary yet. I've listened to the guys talk about it before. I used to join them every week. I've got it on my shelf back there, but content is infinite, time is not. So you will get to all of
Yeah,
these things eventually. You know,
exactly. I have a huge list of films to catch up with,
there's a huge
and
list.
that's definitely on the list.
We'll segue on to what we've been watching on this front, and then I did ask you before we lost our first recording here, but let's normally we talk about the movies we've been watching over the last week or so, but it's your first appearance, so by all means, feel free to cover your entire life. Tell us a little bit about tell a little bit about how you started your interest in horror movies.
Yeah, well, I didn't actually have a great relationship with horror to start off with because I was traumatized as as a child at a sleepover whilst watching The Ring. And I think for about a few years after that, just couldn't watch anything horror, so scared. Um, but yeah, recently been getting really into it and sort of like undertook exposure therapy of just watching as many horror films as possible, and the scarier the better. And now I really love the genre. So yeah, films that I absolutely love, it's like The Exorcist in particular. Even though obviously it's quite like an old film and like the graphics are a bit like, I just love the fact that you watch it and then you feel quite creeped out or like disturbed afterwards. And it has that like eerie feeling throughout the entire movie.
Yeah,
Um,
it's one that stays with you as well, right? Are you excited for the
yeah.
upcoming series from The Exorcist that they're working on right now?
Yeah, I just saw an advert for it and I haven't been able to find a trailer, or there might be like some concept trailers out there. But yeah, it looks really cool. I'm really excited for that. Can't wait for it to come out.
I'm Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. We've got that. We've got Hellraiser. We've just had season 2 of Chucky drop as well. We're in the horror TV paradise as well at the minute.
Yeah, I've been watching Cabinet of Curiosities.
Oh, how is it? I'm still to get to it. How have you been enjoying it?
Yeah, I've only watched a few episodes. It is really good. There are some, I don't particularly like body horror that much. I mean, I appreciate it for what it is. Like, obviously, it's meant to gross you out and be a bit disturbing. But yeah, there's a couple of episodes, there's one episode in particular which has quite a lot of body horror in it, and it was a bit gruesome.
A little bit much.
Um, Yeah, a little bit much. But yeah, really good so far. I can't wait to finish the rest of the series. Um, yeah, there was the last episode I watched, there was one about this like magic lotion,
Mhm.
and it was a lot of ASMR kind of lotion squelching noises throughout the entire episode. So that was a bit interesting. It was that I found that a little bit gross as well.
Although,
But
flip
yeah.
side, your recommendation and the description of all that squelchy ASMR lovely gooiness is going to have any number of people dropping this podcast immediately and rushing straight
Yeah.
to the Netflix queue.
It definitely, yeah, I think some people would absolutely love it. I am not one of those people, but
Just less damp noises in your horror.
yeah, a little bit less.
Oh,
But yeah, the series has been really good so far.
and you mentioned in passing there you've been going back and living through some classics recently. What you've been checking off the to watch list then?
So I realized I'd never watched any of the Scream movies. So I did a deep dive and watched all of them.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, I actually really liked them. I do quite like a slasher movie. Um, but yeah, I have to admit, I really liked the recent film that's come out this year,
Oh,
which I was quite surprised at,
the newest one. Well,
the newest one.
yeah, a little bit of news. I saw it. We skipped over it because we were segueing into what we've been watching. But apparently, one of the stars of Scream Six has come out and said that it is 100 times gorier than the previous one. I'm not sure if she's actively measured that or if she's exaggerating. I can't be sure, but
Mhm.
sounds like they're going for it with this sequel. How do you feel about a sequel proceeding? At least unless it's a trick, because I'm not ruling that out. You're not going to have tricked me, filmmakers, if Nev Campbell does turn out to be in this after all. But how do you feel about Nev Campbell not appearing in the next one? Okay with it? Think move on with the new characters, or sad to see her not around?
I think I would be a bit sad to see her not in there, or at least not even make an appearance in the film. You know, she's the center
Mhm.
of the story. So I think it's a bit sad that she might not be in it. I really hope she is at some point.
Yeah, like I say, I'm not going to be Holly. You mark my words. If she turns out to be in it and was a trick all along, I wasn't tricked. Okay. No, no. So would you say that five is for the most recent one? Is that your favorite of the series you watched, or
No, I think the first one, the
hard to
original
beat, isn't it?
Scream,
It's hard to beat.
yeah, that's my favorite. Um, but yeah, the newest one comes at second for me.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good. I need to re. I've seen Screams one and two
Mm,
infinite times, and I've got the newest one in memory because it was this year. My memories on three and four are a little patchy because I've not seen four for a long time, and I think I've only seen three once ever.
yeah, I think I didn't particularly like the third one. Um, yeah, don't really remember a lot about it, even though I watched it very recently.
I think the third one's the
Uh,
one where like isn't it's in Hollywood and they're making the film and they really leaned into everyone being a suspect. So even the characters that you know and love act like complete psychopaths for the entire movie. So you
yeah,
can wonderful and then it's a mystery brother all along. Spoilers for a
exactly.
very old film. Um, but it's very nice to have the company of another slasher fan with me as well. I know the guys don't necessarily hate slasher movies, but I feel of the three of us, I'm probably the most that loves, in particular, an 80s and 90s slasher fest. So I'm a big Jason and your Freddy fans and so on as well. Michael Myers, maybe he's burnt me out, but never mind.
Yeah, I need to catch up with the Halloween franchise. I didn't realize how many there were.
Oh, you could get to 18 and then stop for my money, 2018 and then stop for my money with that latest remake trilogy, just the first one, and pretend that was the finale the series deserved. But
Mm.
do your own research and everything. But yeah,
Take that into consideration, though.
take that in. How about anything else you've been watching? Are you into any seasonal horrors right now? Anything else that's been on your to watch list recently that you'd like to share?
I've watched, I just finished the Wednesday Addams Netflix series.
Oh, how is it? I'm yet to start that as well.
Yeah, I really liked it. I was a bit worried that they might. turn it into kind of like Riverdale-ish.
Yeah.
I was a little bit scared that they were going to do that, but they didn't. So that's great. And I think Jenna Ortega as Wednesday is brilliant. She plays her so well. And just, yeah, really good character portrayal, storyline. I do really like, and yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in season two.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I think we've now mentioned both of our upcoming horror royalty between Mia Goth and Jenna Ortega. Like, yeah, maybe throw Samara Weaving in there. They are like the top tier of some fantastic horror talent we're going to see for years to come, for my money at very least.
Definitely.
Yeah, oh, I'm
Just
really
all horror queens.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching Wednesday again. Got some lovely time off over Christmas. Maybe instead of watching festive movies, sit and catch up on all this great horror content.
Yeah, do it. You know, seen all the festive movies so many times before.
That's it. I mean, speaking of festive, though, are you a fan of a festive horror movie?
I do quite like Krampus.
Krampus is a great one. Krampus
Yeah.
is great. I am a big fan of Jack Frost, not Michael Keaton, of course. You know, he's a bad, well, I say bad dad. I think he's a bad dad in a movie's bad dad way. So
Mm,
not a Rob Zombie, everyone's a bad abusive dad sense, but in a bad dad, like, oh, you know, I probably go to work a little bit too much and don't see my son. Not that film where he dies and becomes a snowman to rekindle his relationship with his son, but the other one, Jack Frost, the mutant killer snowman, one of my all-time Christmas horror favorites. Um,
oh wow.
but I've been watching another couple of Christmas horror movies that I'll share. Today I watched Shudder exclusive Christmas Bloody Christmas, which is right up my alley. A really schlocky, blood-soaked, over-the-top, ridiculous Christmas horror movie, all about a robot Santa that is in a toy shop which accidentally reverts to its original military programming and goes on a rampage on Christmas Eve, taking out some people who are just out having a lovely evening. Um, yeah, it is a lot of fun. I was really surprised. Let me just pull up some of the cast here. Um, I was really interested looking at who was in it. Chris, sorry, hard to talk and type at the same time. Looking at the cast list that was looking at the cast as it went through there, I was really interested in seeing that actually a lot of the people who've in it haven't either been in very much or the lead heroine of the entire movie has mostly just actually been in really like twee Christmas, like, you know, someone doesn't really believe in Christmas and then they go to a small town and get into a new relationship. She has
Of
primarily
course.
been in movies like that and now is the star of this really over the top bloody horror movie about a robot killer Santa, which is
Wow.
fantastic. And then
That is brilliant.
the other one I watched earlier today was it's a French horror movie called Deadly Games, and it is a precursor to Home Alone, if you like. It's an older film, and it's about a boy he lives in a big mansion with his old granddad and his mom who goes to work, you know, on Christmas Eve, and then never guess what happens. A bad Santa comes round. He's a wrong who is actually a horrible murder man, and he's coming round breaking into people's houses on Christmas Eve. But the boy loves doing traps. He dresses up as Rambo all the time, and he set his house up with loads of like death traps to try and catch this guy. It is a little bit of that, little bit rude. Spoilers for an old film called Deadly Games. There is a trigger warning. A dog was horribly killed in it, which, you know, made me a little bit sad. Very rude of the movie, but other than that, it's really good. It's nice to see the Home Alone DNA in there. I'm not sure how the boy gets access to as much explosive as he does have in this movie, but you know, that that
You
very
never know.
very relatable. And um, either I'm getting better at French, which I really doubt, or the level isn't too high, so you can follow reasonably well with, without having to really keep your eyes on the subtitles all the time. yeah, if you have a basic command of French, even more basic than my terrible use of it, you can probably follow it without having to rely on the subtitles too much. Yeah, good holiday recommendations. Get them down, you everyone. 'Tis the season.
Definitely be watching those over this Christmas break.
Yeah, yeah, get some lovely Christmas horror down here. But other than that, we have both been watching the film of the week, which is, let me bring up Ben's poorly Ben from his sick bed has sent me the all important write ups of these things so I can follow the synopsis. So Ben isn't off the hook entirely, everybody. He has still given me all of the important content of the write up and the choice reviews. He's really, you know, even in his moment of illness, done a lot of work for us. So let me read to you about a little bit about this week's movie, which is of course Salem's Lot, also known as Salem's Lot: the movie, Salem's Lot: the miniseries, and Blood Thirst, is a 1979 American miniseries television adaptation of the 1975 horror novel of the same name by Stephen King, directed by Tobe Hooper and starring David Soul and James Mason. The synopsis here: a novelist and a young horror fan attempt to save a small New England town which has been invaded by vampires. IMDb score of 6.7. It's a 3.3 on Letterboxd and over on Rotten Tomatoes. It has 98% critic score and a 64% audience score. A couple of choice reviews for you. So Jason the Feature Creature says 3.5 stars. Tobe Hooper presents a cartoony adaptation of one of my favorite King stories. Through all the hokey performances, hilarious attempts at New England accents, and mediocre telepathy, Hooper manages to create some truly creepy atmosphere with some decent effects work. A 3-star review from Sarah Jane. Mr. Barlow is one creepy mofo. He's up there with Nosferatu as one of the scariest vampires ever. And 3.5 stars from Bombs Fall. Some dusty old dude rolling into this backwater town to open an antique shop is a big red flag that something uncanny is going on. There we go. That's what the consensus is. Holly, what's your history with this one?
This is the first time I've ever watched it, if I'm honest. Um, yeah, it's I thought it was pretty good, pretty good. Especially yeah, seeing as it was filmed in 1979. But yeah, it's first time watching it.
This is good. We're providing a service. It was good. You can check it off that horror to watch list here. And you're right, an absolute classic. Are you a Stephen King fan, adaptations or books?
I've seen quite a few of the adaptations, or like especially recent films like It, like the recent ones. The original It again terrified me when I was very young. I've seen Carrie as well. Really liked Carrie, but yeah, Salem's Lot was always on my list. It's definitely a book that I want to read now as well.
Yeah, I think watching it this time, it's been a long time since I've seen Salem's Lot. I watched this and the 2000s Rob Lowe adaptation as well. It feels very TV movie, that one does, but there are some good elements to it. And Salem's Lot, another one that we're expecting a revival of in modern times. So we'll see how that one goes shortly. But yeah, it was nice to revisit it. I think I've appreciated it more watching it this time than perhaps I had previously. I think I'd maybe seen it as a maybe one that I'd caught on TV as a like a teenager at some point and thought that vampire's a bit blue, isn't he? And there are some hokey moments in it, but genuinely there's some really good atmosphere to it as well. Really follows the Stephen King adaptation pathway of so many of his movies, which are miniseries. Technically, I don't know, if you're James Cameron, it's not a bit long for a movie. You'll whack one of those on the cinema and just say it's the one. But a couple of, usually about a 3 hour, so two 90-minute sessions. Certainly back in the day, um, it was a big thing. Certainly when I was growing up, that they would put them on TV over 2 nights. So
Oh
it'd,
yeah.
it'd be like a Friday, Saturday on like a BBC Two. And I still remember, like you, being terrified of the It miniseries when they put it on. They promoted it with that little scene from the movie where Tim Curry jumps upon that lamppost and he leans in and he's talking to the kids through the screen saying, "I'll kill you, you bloody." And I was watching that as a kid, going, "Oh no, come on, Kelly, this buddy after me." Um, yeah, so yeah, we'd have those over 2 nights. And this was another example of that. Like it was a period of time where they were doing those things all the time. I guess they've attempted it again with it being split into 2 parts, but nowadays we tend to see his films and his adaptations be just the one thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, but here we go, old school miniseries efforts. Um, yeah, anything that really struck you immediately? What was your big takeaways going from it? How do you feel about the vampire? What about that comment that he's one of the creepiest aside from Nosferatu? Where are you ranking old Mr. Barlow in your spooky vampire stakes?
I mean, visually, he is terrifying to look at. You know, you wouldn't want him breaking into your house at night.
You
Just this
certainly wouldn't want him
blue vampire
certainly wouldn't want him bashing through your kitchen window and knocking your heads together
knocking
until
your
you
heads.
die.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to kill you, blooming hell.
He reminded me as well, like I know it's like Nosferatu style of What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
that they
much.
like the count that like comes and hangs out with them as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Very much like that. I think initially when I started watching it, it reminded me a lot of you know, like the old Scooby-Doo episodes,
Yes.
where it's like the house lit up in the like, well, just the house and then like all darkness around it. And the really like dramatic music as well. And yeah, I thought I agree with the review saying it was like a little bit cartoonish, I think, in places. And yeah,
Yeah, you feel
immediate
like
thoughts was Scooby-Doo.
yeah, you feel like now you've pointed that out, you feel like in that one of the later scenes where they're running around the house, there should have been a musical like a
Yeah.
like a musical number where there was like a long corridor full of doors and they would run between them
Yeah.
and go through different ones. Perhaps at one point, Mr. Barlow would run in and a couple of the guys would have been dressed as some kind of profession, like hairdressers or sandwich makers or something like that, and they'd trick him and say, "Oh no, yeah," and then send him on his way. Yeah, it was a wild movie, but yeah, there was a lot to enjoy about it that I hadn't seen before, and there was so much of it that I didn't remember. I tell you what, we'll dive in and take a look at the plot because one of the first things I didn't remember was that this movie starts with it pretty much starts with its end, right? They're in
Yeah.
Mexico and they're going, oh, what looks like they're making homebrew glow sticks. They're going, oh, geez, the water's glowing. They've found us again. And then the next thing you know, we flash back to 2 years earlier. And here we are in Salem's Lot, formerly Jerusalem's Lot. But people are lazy. They'll shorten the name of things. Um, yeah, we're just in Maine. And here we go. A few steps earlier, and a writer comes to town, who we quickly learn is a former resident of the town, and we kind of see the comings and goings of everyone in the town, including a typical creepy antique dealer who dresses a little bit like an Holly. I'm showing my age here, and it's contemporary with the program, so you'll be far too young to have done it unless you're a big UK TV Gold person. But someone from Minder, it looks a lot like, especially for the time, like Arthur Daly and what's his chops, Dennis Waterman, out there doing just shenanigans out in the town. I mean, it was mentioned in one of these reviews here that it was um, the creepy antique dealer moving to town would have been a red flag.
Oh
Even,
yeah.
even more creepy when he dresses like someone who works for a vampire.
Oh yeah. Just very dark colors, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Always I thought it was quite funny every time he leaves a building, he does like a quick surveying
He does a
of everything.
he does a quick
Yeah.
shady look around. It feels like he always like should be like looking around the corner of the house all the time
Literally.
to see what anyone's getting up to. And there's a bit in the early scene where our writer is kind of looking up at this house because we later reveal he has some old trauma with it. Um, and the guy, they kind of look, he walks up and creeps up on him and like really stares him down for a minute and then like goes, good evening. And then like,
Not why are you staring at my house?
why are you staring at my yeah, it's not, and I feel like this movie again, not criticizing a 3 hour runtime. It was the era, but it feels like probably our first 30 minutes or so is really dedicated to just meeting all the people in the town, right? So, um,
Yeah.
our lead character, our writer, he heads over and looks for lodgings. He gets recommended to go to the nearby lodging house, and then before you know it, he's found himself in the middle of an open field chatting up a woman he's just run into.
Yeah, just bags himself a date right
Yeah,
off the bat.
straight away. And I feel like he pulls this off by a little bit of you know, she must feel a little bit embarrassed because like I mean you're treating a book quite poorly. You've got it spine splayed across the floor, and then you think, oh, who's going to care about? Oh shit, his face is on the back of the book, one of your books. Like he's probably the only person that could bust her and tell her off for that. What are you doing with that book? What do you care? Oh, it's one of yours. Okay, fine. I'll
It's very smooth from him, though. You know,
yeah.
just coming over and be like, I'm the writer of this book that you're reading. Let's go on a date.
Yeah, oh, a different era when you could just approach a stranger in the middle of a secluded wooded area and ask them
Oh,
for
yeah.
date, and that not be problematic.
Yeah, that would be a huge red flag now.
Yeah,
Someone comes up to you when you're in a field just chilling. No.
yeah. And then again, the idea, I guess, of I'll just hang out in this little glen on my own, on my own over here. I wonder if anyone will come and chat to me while I'm out here. But yeah, he does that, and then immediately nets himself a date with Susan. Um, and everything seems to be going well. It's like a small town with some small town problems, and we reveal all of these things. But the local estate agent, we immediately suspect he's having an affair because he's like, no, it's his receptionist calls him like darling and that all the time, right? Already, and he's like,
Yeah,
shh,
honey.
shh, you'll give it away, you'll give it away, and she goes, I won't, I shan't give it away. He says, well, one of these days you'll forget that you can't say it in front of other people, and she goes, that'll be the day. That's not going to happen. Immediately
Yeah,
says
don't
it.
worry, honey.
Definitely says it in front of some other guy, and then there's local town drunk, poor old weasel. I mean, Phil normative determinism. If this guy's like got a name like Boozy Weasel Face and things like that, you are going to be the vagranty guy that hangs out outside having a little tipple.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but yeah, we see all these characters, and there's also we've got the kid characters again. A film I think of its era that doesn't. I guess it's really characteristic of Stephen King books as well, involving kids directly in the horror as well here as well, right? So we have some kids that like hanging about. We've got one boy who a precocious youth, isn't he? He's out there. He's practicing for the school play. And then we get to learn his skills very quickly. I mean, we see a few instances of him learning his skills as well. One, we know he's really interested in monsters and horror, which gives him a good leg up if vampires happen to be real at any point in this movie. Um, we also learn that he can escape from a pair of handcuffs, and he even says to his dad at one point, "Yeah, yeah, tie us up. Honestly, as difficult as you like. You tie me up in as many ropes as you want. I'll be able to escape lickety split."
I mean,
Um,
his dad's not very supportive though. She's like, "Ugh, when are you gonna grow up?
yeah,
When?
it's like, oh,
Why are you interested in this?"
well, you're interested in escaping from things. Only as an adult, the chances of you having to escape from something are slim to none.
Little did he know.
Little did he know. And actually, he doesn't even support that at all. Because he it's like his dad does, like token 70s, 80s dad activity of, right, I'm going to be interested in what my son's hobbies are for 30 seconds. Like, okay, you can escape from some handcuffs. And then he's like, go on, tie us up. And he's like, no, no, sorry, I've done one thing with you. I've got to get back to doing my quarterly taxes now, which is what his mom tells him off for earlier on. When he's doing his rehearsals for his play, she's like, what are you doing? So I'm just rehearsing for my play, mom. Well, your dad's trying to do his quarterly taxes, so if you could just a bit of shush.
Don't
Um,
disturb him.
yeah. So yeah, we don't actually have any vampires doing much for a little while, right? We it's just the ins and outs of of this town that we have that we have going on here. And there's a couple of these things. The festering evil under the town at the moment is limited to some fairly standard activities. Because Susan's got an ex-boyfriend who's a plumber, and he's like he's
Definitely a red flag.
yeah, he's following around like having a bit of a glare when this writer comes to town and has managed to chat up his old girlfriend in a field. He's not having it at all. Obviously, not really much not much plumbing work to be doing in this town because there's plenty of time for him to moonlight about, look, just basically spying on your ex all day, and then just take a short job to move a sideboard into a basement in the middle of the night later on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought, um, yeah, him just lingering outside of her workplace, like straight away, no.
Yeah,
Red flag, red flag.
and then being ready to thump the new love interest a bit later on, just
Yeah.
out of nowhere. Um, I'll touch a little bit on the remake here. We're not going to talk about in details, but tell you what a casting in this remake. We have a baddie from Neighbours plays the plumber boyfriend, and they have a. I'm not sure now. I really need to read the book. This is where someone like Luke could come in handy on this episode, because if there's a book to have read, he's almost certainly read it. He's a real bookworm. But like the fight with the ex-boyfriend is really extended in the remade version a little bit. For one, the character is problematic in different ways because they've updated it a little bit. He installed Susan's computer, so he's got her email passwords. No, no,
Oh
no.
no. No,
And
no, no.
she knows that she fancies this writer, because in that one she's been sending emails. I don't know who to, an unnamed third party saying, "Core, this writer that used to live in this town ever turns back up here, I'm going to go on a date with him faster than you could say, faster than you could say Stephen King self-insert character." Um, yeah, and she then he knows about it from that way. But he is more sympathetic, not sympathetic that he's reading his girlfriend's emails, but he
Mm.
kind of doesn't go out on the attack until he's become a vampire. He's not just automatically a bad bloke that then gets got in prison by the vampire. He has been got by the vampire already, and he kind of is on the turn, and he attacks Rob Lowe's character in daylight, covered in like rubber gloves and a coat because he's being burned by the sun at the same time. So he runs
Oh no.
in like a Heisenberg outfit and thumps him, and then they both get thrown in prison, and then he tries to crawl through the vent to get him in the prison cell at
Oh
night time.
wow.
So he's like going through the vent trying to get him, and then he can't get him, so he bites his own wrists and drinks his own blood. So they I need to
Hmm.
go back and see how. I'm not sure if they've adapted things that were in the book that we didn't see in this first movie, and there was more to it, or the makers of a 2000s. And now I think about it, that's probably more likely. The makers of a 2000s version of a book adaptation have thought, how can we spice this up a little bit?
Yeah. Well, maybe because it was on TV in the 70s as well, they didn't want to
Yeah,
make it
yeah,
super, super violent.
yeah. And then wanted to limit their violence to getting your heads knocked together. Classic mom punishment of when you're fighting with your brother.
Just
Not
instant death
Yeah.
through headbutt.
Yeah. I mean, I think of all of the horror movies we've watched on this show, if I could perfect one move, can you imagine having that power
I mean,
in
amazing.
any kind of fight situation? You could blow in as a bit of cloth through the window. Imagine that. There's like a barroom brawl going on. Like, for some reason, despite being almost 40, I find myself in a nightclub, and you know, there's shit kicking off, and you think, how are we going to get out of here? And just appear as a cloak, blow into the area where the fight's happening. Before you know it, you pop out of nowhere, bang! So hard that they've died.
All the problems sorted,
Yeah, no,
vanish again.
no, no one, yeah, no one would mess with you ever again.
Oh no, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, while we're talking characters and differences as well, Barlow himself, obviously we know and love him as his classic kind of blue ears from. It looks a little bit like what Dr. Loomis from Halloween might dress up as. He's got a very Dr. Loomisy face. He's got a very Donald Pleasancy air to him,
Hmm.
except if he's blue with golden eyes and big horrible vampire teeth. Other than that, exactly like him. Um, so yeah, we have in this in the remade version we have Rutger Hauer just with sort of wispy hair, and he's not. I think he's quite even though he has vampire powers, he is a mute monster type creature in the
Mm.
this original version, and again in this remade one, he'll have a chat with you. He'll like his power tends to be he has the same vampire powers, but he does a lot of negging. Does Rutger Hauer Barlow? He'll like say, "Oh, your core beliefs." Tell you what, gonna have a real go at you about those. He'll like you meet a priest and goes, "Oh, I'll tell you what, you like a bit of a drink, don't you? When was that? When did that
Yep.
start? Did you have a little nip at lunchtime one day? Did you? Oh, is it because something you did in the Catholic Church that you feel guilty about?" And then later on, when he's fighting the heroes, he's like, "Oh, you've got no. Oh, you're a writer, are you? Write that because of the darkness in your heart. I'm not a vampire, actually. I think you'll find that you're a vampire. You point a finger at me, think of those three pointing back at yourself. That's what he does anyway.
Just gaslighting all
Yeah,
of them.
he's a real problematic guy. Is the Rutger Hauer vampire? Whereas this guy, in many ways, original recipe Barley, you've got to respect his purity. Really, he's just a blue man who'll knock your head together.
Doesn't say anything, just yep,
No,
violent.
he's a man of action, if anything. Um,
I thought he was like very animalistic, I
yeah,
think. Yeah, just straight away, like when he grabs Mark, and it kind of seemed like Straker was like in control of him a
yeah,
little bit in that confrontation. It was really weird.
yeah. It is like
Mm.
it is written like say he's this is a very different creature to lots of other vampires that we see. Because I mean, if you go back to even classic Count Dracula and so on, it's there's a romance to it, and there's a conversational piece. You can have I mean, whether that makes Dracula's more or less scary as monsters, you can usually have a conversation with them. Um, and later on, you can make a bargain with them, like the priest does. When later on, I'd have absolutely not kept my promise to him. As soon as he'd let that boy go, I'd have been like, "Ha, had my thing like nothing
Joke's
in
on
the
you.
nothing in the Bible says." I'm pretty sure. Tell you what, Holly, I'm not gonna see him. Not a priest. I haven't been to theology school. I've not read the Bible cover to cover, but I'm a good 80 to 95% confident that the Bible has nothing in there that says you mustn't lie to vampires. I reckon you can lie
Yeah,
to vampires as
I
much as you
think
want.
so.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll put my cross down and I will fight you, my faith against yours, Mr. Vampire. Nah, actually, I'm not. I'm going to use all of the Jesus-based weapons my faith provides me with. But
We-
yeah, we're ahead of schedule on that one. I guess we've seen the build up and the undertones of what's happening, and then keep me honest here because my notes are muddled on this one. Is it one of the Glick boys that's the first victim of the vampire? Does he get got when he's out in the woods that night heading home?
Yeah, so he gets got. I'm not sure if Larry, the real estate agent, whether he gets got first, but he
Oh
doesn't turn into
yeah,
a vampire, I don't think.
because he just gets yeah, unless he's just one of the crowd we get later on. I mean,
Yeah.
tell you what, you've touched on the point where Larry, the real estate agent, gets got. They get done in a silk pajama based affair.
Yep.
After we've talked about his receptionist calling him honey. To be fair, her husband, big old loser. He loves just sitting there, not even being very cooperative because his wife seems quite interested at first. She comes in, he's on like his third tinny. He's just crushing his tinnies in the house. And she comes in and says, "Hey, do you want to stay in tonight?" So she's not even like, "Hey, we don't go out. Do you want to stay in tonight?" He goes, "Oh yes, yeah, go on then." What are you watching? Nothing. You clearly are. You're watching some. I know that this is indicative of your bad relationship, but put a little bit of effort in, mate.
Yeah. He's like, just go get me a beer. Just, just go.
Yeah, and yeah, go get me a beer. Despite the fact I've clearly had several with me over here, you clearly haven't got an issue with going to get beers already. You've been getting them all afternoon.
Exactly.
You've been getting them all afternoon. His wife's like, "Oh, don't get too drunk. Wanting to have a little bit of energy." He's like, okay, so you're not all about affairs, I guess. But no, he's he's not up for it. He's got to save all his energy to be out at night, just watching your wife from things
Yeah.
having an affair. So and she kind of dismisses that he knows about the affair because she goes, "Oh, you wouldn't joke about it if he because he jokes with her something along the lines of, oh, having an affair with the estate agent, are you?" And he's like, no. But unfortunately, there's a little bit of truth in that joke because having later on we see him he's waiting outside and he catches them in the fair. She's got a I mean what a great outfit. I mean, I am not
Oh,
yeah yeah
the outfit I thought was hilarious. It's like crushed velvet
yeah
shorts and like was it like a
like a
no
matching
sleeve?
like a
Yeah,
matching
like
sleeveless top, right?
but high heels as well.
Yeah,
Perfect. Yeah,
perfect
absolutely perfect.
perfect seduction wear.
And definitely, yeah, him with his satin red
Oh
boxer
yeah, it's
shorts.
red
Perfect
satin.
combination.
It's red satin boxers, and he kind of phones her up, and we get like a lovely one-sided phone conversation where she's there. Yeah, husband's gone. Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk dirty to you on the phone at all. No, I don't want to go to a motel. Just come around here. Okay, then fine. Well, I'll see you in a bit. Meanwhile, husband's literally just outside, like with his
Yeah.
binoculars and shotgun. Like, yeah, could just stay in to avoid this affair having room to take place, but no.
I find it really interesting as well that at this time, so he's like given a job to two of the other characters to like go and pick up a sideboard, and they're just discussing the affair in the truck and just being like, oh, what is he doing? It's like, oh well, his wife's, obviously having an affair. And they're like, oh, what would you do about it? And he's like, well, he has like a was it a 12 gauge
Yeah,
shotgun? What would you do? And I was like, how can they just be so casually like, oh, well, he has a shotgun,
I
Just
mean, yeah, with
how
having
do you how else do you
shotgun
solve problems?
shotgun ownership just does escalate murder to the highest level of your
Yeah.
priority list for any type of solution. Oh, my oven's dirty, really needs a clean. What are you going to do about it? I do have a 12 gauge shotgun. Oh well, that's it then. Just blast
Solves all the issues.
blast the grime away.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
obviously he comes in with the shotgun and confronts them having
yeah.
the affair.
Oh,
And
and I tell you what, way to pour cold water on the romance of your affair that you have in. She throws him directly under the bus.
yeah, I was so shocked
Yeah,
at her accusation. It was just, yeah, yeah, very problematic.
but yeah. Oh, he's bloody come in here and attack me, And the guy's like, oh, is that true? Because I should
Yeah, I should just shoot him then.
being a
No
rapist,
one's gonna put me in prison.
I should probably shoot this guy, shouldn't I? And then he just gives him a little bit of shit about it. Oh, I love your boxers, by the way. It must have been why you chose to keep them on. Yeah,
Very intense scene though.
yeah. It was genuinely we joke, but I think that was an incredibly. That's probably one of the first real heavy bits of tension that we get in this movie, right? Which is not at all vampire related.
Yeah, especially when he corners, so he gets Larry, who's having the affair, and asks him to like hold the barrel
Yeah,
of the shotgun to his face. And that I was like, oh my God, are we about to see like Larry explode? Or what's gonna happen?
yeah.
And yeah, it was just like obviously chicken, he does pull the trigger, and then Larry runs away. and you think, yes, Larry's escaped, and then he gets got by some unknown figure.
Yeah, he gets yeah. You're right. I certainly not from my reading of this. I'm not sure we saw him again as a vampire or know that he's been necessarily got. We certainly don't get a confrontation with him like we do with loads of others where they're going, "Oh, I'm a spooky vampire now." Um, but yeah, that's the end of him, and yeah, it's a non apart from the very end, a non-vampire related creepy scene, and one of the Glick brothers. Well, they both get slightly got, but one of them gets slurped off into the woods, and the other one gets himself home late, and his mom and dad are dead worried, and he comes in like, "Oh, I tell you what an evening I've got." And of course, 1979 was a lot closer to the Victorian era than we are today. There are probably still a little bit of those characteristics that existed at the time, where if you got, if you lived in the 1800s and you got a bit of a fright, you could die from that. If you had a
Oh
stressful
yeah.
week and didn't immediately go and like convalesce at the seaside for a few months to get better, you could cop a brain fever and you'd be done. You'd be
Dead.
yeah, that's it. You just fade away like a Padme. Take a big breath out, give up on life, just turn all grey like ET. That's it. That's it for you. Um, but yeah, he's doing that. And then immediately, like pretty swiftly, you see he takes a turn for the worse because his brother has come rat-a-tat-tatting on the window as a little vampire. And this was a misremembering from my part on this movie. I felt like this was just a one iconic scene thing where we see the one character who doesn't let him in. But no, actually in this movie, you only tend to remember the one occasion where they have a conversation that's trying to like entice them to let them into the room. But in this, on several occasions, with this pair of brothers, in fact, vampires knocking at windows and being let in all over the shop.
Yeah. I was quite, at first, I wasn't sure why his brother let him in the first place. Because, like, his little brother is creepy, floating outside of his window, tapping with yellow eyes.
Yeah, you'd have
And
none
the,
of it, would you?
no. And the old brother's just like, oh, just let him in. It's fine. But then obviously we later realize that they're kind of hypnotizing them in a
Yeah,
way, like they're in a bit of a trance.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I thought that was quite the little boy at the window. I thought was actually really creepy. If I was a kid watching that, I would be terrified.
And especially if you lived in Salem, it's like where everyone sleeps with, in this economy, because cost of living, you shut your curtains, wouldn't you?
Oh,
Don't
it's
let
a
that heat
classic
escape.
horror move. Classic horror move. Do not shut any curtains.
Do not shut your
Just
curtains. So
just
anything that's
don't shut your
creepy can be
curtains.
looking on you all the time.
Yep. Just you have to be like good to the villains in the story.
Yeah, you need to give them every opportunity to hypnotize you or to come and give you a bit of a spooking. Um,
Exactly.
but that's right. You've mentioned it now, so we'll cover it. We get a lot of the vampires and their, I think, quite well executed and quite subtly done hypnotic powers because it's not expressly done. They don't like go, "You are in my power" or anything like that. They are properly, it is very implied.
Yeah,
Again, in the remake, you get a little bit more breakdown of that where someone goes, "Oh, don't go looking at them. That's how they can make you do stuff." Um, but then I was thinking about Salem's Lot. Should I find myself in a Salem's Lot situation? I mean, probably widespread in this modern era, but from a generation where, to be honest, I find it hard looking strangers in the eyes at the best of times, let alone after I spent 2 years locked in the house during COVID lockdowns. I feel like I'd be invincible in Salem's Not now. The vampires would look at me and I was like, no. Like,
just shut the curtains in front of their face. Just
yeah,
like, not today.
again, in this economy, probably got the curtains and the blinds closed already.
Exactly.
Come on. Those vampires could be tapping away at the window all night. And then if they did look, I said, "Oh, have a look at us. Will you? Look us in the eye so we can do some hypnosis," and be like, "Ha, No thanks. I will be looking at the floor or just off to the side at all times, please. And also, with our modern sensibilities and all the horror movies, I think we now have a generation of our precocious escape artist boy that I feel nowadays, if you had the slightest inclination someone was a vampire, you'd stick him immediately, wouldn't you? Apologize
Oh,
afterwards if you're wrong.
100%.
Yeah.
Strike first, ask questions later.
To be honest, if I just caught someone having a sleep in the day, I'd be like, no. I've especially lived in Salem slot. Just go around with loads of sharp snooker cues, ready to roll. Um, so I guess as we're moving along with this now, we've seen some other little pieces. I mean, this is a long movie and there's a lot to take, and we've had other encounters as well. We've seen there's a guy with a dog who's off camera, but lovely dog gets killed again. Again, rude. Two movies in the same week where they've bumped a dog off.
Yeah.
But I think the point of this, and this is one of the other like handymen or like it certainly works as a grave digger. There's lots of these people that do odd jobs around the town, but they've left the dog's body on the grounds of the church, which I'm not sure if this is in the remake or otherwise. Someone makes a point of that's unconsecrated the ground now. So actually,
Uh,
I'm gonna have to holy water all this again. Otherwise, and obviously that will, if you're a vampire, that's exactly what you want, fouling up the
mm,
ground so you're allowed to go more places. Um, and again, I'm not sure if it's explored necessarily in this movie, but it feels like that could be something that's drawn from the text because um, the other one of the Glick brothers, he gets poorly, he goes to hospital, and then his brother comes to the hospital window as well. Rude, not
just
even visiting
finish him
hours.
off.
Yeah. um, Bleeds him out. He dies. We see the 1979 sensibilities. We don't necessarily see a dead boy in bed. We just see someone drop a tray of medical supplies over the floor, and he's gone as well. And then we go on to the funeral. He is being buried, and then our gravedigger character also gets pseudo hypnotized slash got by one of the vampires as the sun goes down. And
Yeah. I wasn't sure if the sun was actually up still when he opens the casket.
yeah,
I thought that was interesting because you would think that, yeah, the sun would have to be fully set for him to be able to even hypnotize him, you know?
yeah, you don't seem to see we don't really see the reaction of the vampires to the sun in this, right? They just stay in all day.
Yeah.
Really. We don't see them particularly afraid of the sunlight directly, and it doesn't really play a factor in this movie. I mean, the movie Ben and I talked about last week, Near Dark, the film which is perpetually 10 minutes from the sun coming up and the vampires being in immense peril. We don't have this at all. In this one, it's kind of just doesn't really come up. And again, in the remake, we touch on it a little bit when Probo boyfriend is a vampire and is out in the sun. He's burned by the sun. There's a bit where the light is coming through the window, and he almost like when you've got a bruise and you touch it and it goes, oh, that hurts, and you then touch it again to see if it still hurts. He's like that. There's like a beam of light coming through his window, and he's like, oh, oh, and he keeps putting his hand back in. Oh, it does still really hurt. So, yeah, but we don't really see it in this version. So you're right. Could just be the lighting of the time, I guess, where they just happen to be filming on a cloudy day, and maybe it's meant to be perma-dusk. But the next thing we see is this guy is at the he's just looking a bit rough and acting a bit weird at the diner that everyone hangs out at, and the former teacher, the nice old the lovely old man, and so Ben's former teacher, old Mears, he they kind of he's invited along to stay at his house until he starts feeling better. And I guess this is, again, he continues to get ill. I should point out that the teacher is played by Captain Holt in the remake, another great bit of casting. Um, and they lean into the, I think some of the implied stuff in the text there, they that this guy is kind of a closeted homosexual in there, and he keeps those things about his life private. It's obviously a film made in the 2000s is more explicit about that. um
Yeah.
but in this one, the guy is staying there. He continues to get ill, and then he comes in one day and he's doing some creepy vampire rocking chair stuff. Never seen a vampire in such casual, such comfy slacks.
I thought that scene was great. I did feel really tense because I really liked the teacher. I think it's Jason, um, or Mr. Jason.
Let's
And
pull him up here.
yeah, I was so worried that he was gonna be vampire food.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I thought this scene was actually quite creepy as well, just him like rocking slowly in the chair. And you can kind of see the teacher getting a little bit hypnotized, I think. He starts rocking as well. And you're like, oh,
Yes, that was really well done. He starts like
yeah.
rocking and he's like got him. But he didn't spend all these years being a teacher, having a few tricks up your sleeve, and he knows a few. And he's like, look at me, and he's like, nah, mate, shan't.
Nah.
It's like, absolutely not. And he kind of gets the best of it. So he knows to look away, because I'm guessing he's probably read a lot of books about vampires and the like, being a teacher.
He
Certainly.
came prepared, has a
Yeah.
cross.
He's got a cross with him and he goes, hey, your invite to be around here rescinded. He's like, what? No, you can't just, yeah, I'd prefer it if you'd leave. And he Jesus is him right out the window.
Yep.
And again, you're living in a single pane society again. Imagine if you've got that, triple glazed noise reducing like safety glass you have nowadays. Much harder to repel a vampire once they're already in. But thankfully,
Definitely.
in wooden single pane glass, he's right out of it. Um,
But wasn't sure how he got into the house as well. Like, did he come through an open window and then close it?
oh, I think he invited
Or
him because he met him
uh
when he was ill. He
oh
was like,
yeah,
"I'll tell you what, come and have a sleepover at mine. See if you feel better." So he's turned into a vampire in his house.
right.
So he goes, "Yeah, invite rescinded. Out you go. Off you fuck." And he heads out there. But then I was very sad because I was like, "You've earned this. You teacher, I want you as like the Van Helsing character." But no, I mean, I guess it's better than being got by a vampire. Um, but he does have a
Yeah.
heart attack afterwards. Is this the last we see of the teacher in this one? Because again, I'm conflating it with the remake. Andre Vargas stays around in the remake for a while, but
Mm.
is he
I'm not
gone in this
sure.
one?
I don't think we see any more of him, but we know he's in intensive care in the hospital. So it's whether, the vampires at the end, do they get everyone in the town? Does he get spared? What happens? We don't know what happens to him.
I want like a little A-team moment where when the sheriff leaves town in this one where he goes, "Oh, and I've taken the old teacher to live with his family in Norway, where the sun never goes down for 6 months of the year. So he'll be all right because summer's just kicking off." Um, yeah, yeah, we don't. As far as I'm aware, I might have to go back and revisit this. There's a lot to take in, and I think even with I mean, you've seen the heft of a Stephen King book of the era, right? Like, I think even a 3 hour adaptation, you're not getting all the stuff here. I think I really have bumped this up my to read list at this point. So
Definitely.
if anything, if for nothing else than the closure on a lot of these characters. Um, but yeah, we sadly don't see him again and again. We'll touch on the remake here. In that one, he's in hospital. We see some additional context where he's helping them and he's giving them some guidance. He knows all about killing vampires. Um, but then when the priest, who in this one again is another character who we have and then is gone at a certain point, he gets turned to a wrong end by the vampire, and he goes and kills him in his hospital bed,
Uh
which is real bad.
yeah. That's sad.
Yeah, he kind of does like a real petty tit for tat. Well, you staked some of my vampire mates. I'm going to stake you, mate, right in the heart. And unfortunately, I mean, we spend a lot of time thinking, Holly, how we're different from vampires. In many ways, if we focus for a moment on the things that make us the same as vampires, is if you get stuck in the heart as a human, just as deadly as being a vampire. Stake through the
Mm.
heart will do for most humans as well. Uh,
Yeah, I would think so.
yeah, and that's what happens. It's a common weakness amongst us. But we don't get that in this original version. We just get ambiguous not here anymore. So we can only assume that he was transferred to another town for intensive care and is doing all right.
Living.
Is doing all right to this day. Probably
Let's
doesn't
hope so.
probably doesn't teach anymore. Is probably formally retired, but maybe keeps in touch with his old students every so often. Maybe the school he used to work for has got a Facebook group now, and he's on there. He'll pop and send a little message, send some well wishes, and if he ever meets one of his old students in town, he will definitely still remember them. And so they don't have to call him sir anymore; they can call him by his first name. It's ever so lovely, heartwarming moment.
So heartwarming.
Yeah, but we don't get that sadly. Well, we have to assume that that's the stuff that we're getting there for. Let's have a look what happens next. So I guess this is one of the points where we have everyone's been rat-a-tat-tatting at windows. All sorts of people are going missing. But our main guy, what is the name? Is it Mark? What's the
Oh,
name?
Mark.
Is that
Yeah,
yes? I can.
of the kid.
Yes, I'm looking obviously at the letterboxd, and the thing is with people who are child actors, if they continue to act, the picture you get of them is them as an adult. But I can see the fact. So Mark, our precocious escape artist boy, he has a little knock at the window, and it's one of the Glick boys saying, "Open the window. It's great. You can be a vampire."
I'm
Um,
your friend. Just open the window.
because you look like a vampire. It's yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm honestly not. But again, he edges towards the window as well. I'm not sure. Is this a because he's got the wherewithal to kind of resist their magic, or is it just that he's not looking properly? He's got a bit of sleep in his eye.
I don't know because he looks like I think he is looking straight at him, and he looks hypnotized, but you could see like a single tear dripping down his
Yes,
face. So
that's
I feel
right.
like he's like fighting it maybe a little bit, and maybe a part of him that's like fighting it. It's like, oh, vampire, I know what can help
And he
for
goes
us.
he's got like that Beetlejuice table that's got like a model of loads of little models on it, and there's a
Yeah.
cross, there's a cross on there, and there's the boy. He does open the window, right? And as he comes in, he's like, "Ha! Oh
I
no,
think
he went
he
against the glass."
he like goes towards the latch, but then just holds up to the cross to the glass.
And he's like, "Oh shit, not them!" But he hates these things. I'm off again. I've been confused by watching the remake back to back as well. The drama with Mark in the remake is that he does open the window and let him in, but he
Uh,
grabs across from there, burns him on the face with it, and then the vampire Glick boy goes, "Oh fuck's sake, I'll kill you!" and then just legs it. He just goes off. Um, and then yeah, we've at this point now, a lot of our characters are beginning to get the idea that there's something going wrong here. Although, with the exception of the sheriff asking the creepy black suited man, have you got your black suits there? Because we found a scrap of black material. Like that's the most investigation he's gone for yet. Really, most of the most of the investigation has happened on the part of Ben and Susan, and then a doctor that they've befriended. Um, that they're looking into these things, and then I guess their investigation is furthered where the mother of the two boys, Mrs. Glick, she also gets got by her own vampire kids, right, and is
yeah.
another person that's dead. Ben convinces the doctor to have a let's have a little sit in with this dead body. It's like, well, it's not going to turn into a vampire. And oh yeah, no, benefit of the doubt, eh? Let's just wait. And then conveniently, just as the doctor goes off to like make a phone call to make sure his kids have gone to bed on time or something along those lines, um, Mrs. Glick starts getting up as a vampire.
Starts hissing away.
Yeah.
All purple and yellow eyes.
Yeah, she gets up, getting a purple and yellow eyes, but thankfully there's some lovely lolly sticks in the mortuary, those little tongue depressors. And he's able to quickly fashion a cross with it. He makes a little cross shape, blasts out, the abridged version of the Lord's Prayer. Goes, right, bless this. Put a bit of Jesus in this, will you? And God thankfully obliges and gives it just a little touch with it. And she
She just starts smoking
yeah
and then just vanishes.
disappears away like Obi-Wan or like Yoda when he dies. He
Yeah.
just fades away. And at first, I was literally thinking out loud to myself, actually, in this universe, vampires dying, it's quite a and then before it even finished that phrase, a couple of tables just collapse. Like literally, there's a couple of bits of apparatus there, and even though she's fading into oblivion, then it's like, oh, I have to have some impact. And like bang, and like
Yeah.
loads of this stuff just falls onto the floor. Like I'm not going out like that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if she died or whether she like teleported somewhere else. I was like, can they die from having the cross burnt on their face? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, like I assumed that she died. They just didn't have the budget to have her dead body. Like, oh, so she kind of just fades away like a disappearing ghost. Again,
Yeah,
they have a. I guess I'll touch on the 2000s effects of the remake here. They do similar. They kind of disappear in a Buffy style. She goes a bit ashy, and then they tend to, after you've got them in the remake, they float towards a surface and then they do an effect on the wall or ceiling or whatever they fall into that like they've disappeared into like a void. They've sort of burnt against it like a shadow. Um,
okay.
but yeah, so I assume she's dead, but she could have. You're right. Like vampires have some crazy magic in this one. She could have just teleported away. I'll be back. Um, but yeah, they kind of gather their forces. They pop along to the church and grab some holy water at some point. But I think we're now approaching Barlow's special move because we've heard Barlow mentioned by his caretaker, the man in the black suit and antique dealer the whole time. Um, but they basically they go around. The priest has been recruited into this as well. He's like, yep, vampires, know all about it. Actually, yep, the church has been dealing with vampires for quite a while. I will absolutely give you a hand with this. Susan's been drafted in, and they it's a scene where they go round to what's his name here? The wee boy Mark. I need to remember that name. So they go around to Mark's house, and his mom and dad are going, vampires? Oh, nah, no such thing. And then unfortunately, they no longer need an invite in if the windows just blow down. He big bad will sit in there, comes in as a cloth, does like a reverse disappearing trick, and pulls out the move we've already mentioned, where he bashes their heads together. And my first assumption was, oh no, he's knocked them out, so there's going to be some.
Yeah,
He's knocked them out, and he's going to rob off with the boy. But no, Mark kneels down.
dead.
You get no dead.
Dead.
He's got him.
They're just dead, and then he legs it off.
Yeah, and then he's got him. And there's a team up there. So both Barlow and his human attendant come in, and it's a bit of 2-on-2, and they've both got a hostage. And they say, "Oh, tell you what, let the put the cross down, and I'll let the boy go." And the priest, again, he does the good thing in that he says, "Oh, you've got to let the boy go." But then, as I said earlier, I'd have never kept my promise to a vampire.
No, definitely not.
So see this crucifix in my hand. Isn't the only thing that's crossed. Also my fingers. And they'd be like, "What? Betrayed?" Either that or like, like when you have like a Lethal Weapon type movie and they go, oh, throw your gun away, and then they've got another gun in like their ankle or something like that.
Yeah. Like Die Hard, like taped to his back.
Get a
Just
massive,
another cross.
the big one from the church, like the full
Yeah.
on Jesus that's on there. And then again, we've established that they can be made from lolly sticks very quickly. And if you're a
Yeah.
priest and you do that every Sunday, you can probably do the make a cross blessing like you're the scat man and just like spit it out like nothing. I'd be I'd be like getting like knives out the cutlery drawer and
Just yeah.
do everything. Just do that with your arms, surely.
Yeah. Just no, get away.
Yeah.
No.
But
I was really surprised though how like obviously like the crucifix didn't seem to affect Barlow. He just grabs it out of his hand and just chucks it. It's like no, this does nothing.
yeah, I wasn't sure. Was this they because again the remake, I guess they're used to 2000s audiences being thicker, I guess, and they spell it out a little bit more. Later on, they said, "Oh, but it doesn't work because you haven't got any faith." Maybe at this point, the subtext is meant to be that they've like he's kind of broken his faith. He's on fucking hell vampires, and the vampire's strength, the vampire is stronger than this guy's faith is at this point. But
Yeah.
I'd imagine if faith is a thing that helps you believe in them, if it's that strength of belief that you have despite the fact you don't have any concrete evidence that it exists, I feel that even as someone who doesn't have faith today, if I was encountered with irrefutable proof that there were vampires and they absolutely fucking hated crosses and Jesus and all that other stuff, I'd probably be doubling down on it and said, actually, I think this is more powerful than ever. I'd be
Yeah.
blasting out those hymns at 11.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know why his faith seems to waver. Maybe it's because he didn't keep his promise. I don't know.
yeah.
Like,
Or,
yeah,
or maybe it's like any type of special move, and if you're just tired, you need some time
yeah,
to you've used up all your MP, you've got nothing left in the tank. You're gonna need to have a rest. You have to long rest before you can use any of those skills again. So maybe it's that. But either way, again, keep me honest, Ollie. I've been potentially absolutely ruined by watching both of these versions. Does the priest turn up again, or is he now just gone?
I think he's just gone. So Barlow rips the crucifix from him, and then he looks a bit scared, and then that's all. That's all we see. I'm assuming he gets killed by Barlow or turned into a vampire.
Yeah,
Um,
probably just bashes his
yeah.
head into something, right? Finish.
Or yeah, just super headbutt,
Gives him a little knock
instant
on the head.
death.
Oh, you're done. That's so special. Yeah. So yeah, they're all gone, but it does set Mark on an absolute path. He is sick of vampires about now. It's like I've
Yeah,
had it to the back teeth with vampires. Vampires wouldn't appreciate that because they're all about the front teeth. Vampire can't even eat food. Have vampires got back teeth? Probably not. So
they don't need him.
the very fact that Mark is sick to the back teeth of it should indicate to a vampire just how sick of him he is. Um, and then with all the other investigations that gone on, we've probably lost sequence a little bit here, but we reach our I was about to say our finale, our crescendo, but it's not really. There's plenty to go. Um, Mark is kind of busted by Susan while the others are making their plans to move on Barlow. Um, Susan pulls up at the house and sees Mark trying to break in and kind of joins him.
Yeah, follows him in.
So they walk into each other. They have a jump scare where she's ready to burst in, and it's Mark. What are you doing here? Says, I killed these vampires.
What are you doing here?
What are you doing? Well, I just followed you in. So well, I'm going to kill these vampires. You weren't here, Susan, so you won't have seen it. But he bashed my parents' heads together so hard that they died. Like, until you've seen something like that happen, you couldn't appreciate it. So, I'm looking for this vampire, and I'm gonna stake him with these stakes that I've.
Yeah, he came prepared.
Yeah, he's well prepared. He's a monster expert. Like we know,
Exactly.
these are his hobbies, so he's ready to stake things. Unfortunately, looking at here now, the name of the baddie, the attendant, his name is Mr. Straker, which should be like Staker. You'd think he'd be a vampire hunter, but no, he's
No.
Strakes, not Stakes. And Straker comes out, and they kind of bust him. He's sort of hid behind a door, and he comes out
Yeah.
and he's like, "Aha! I've caught you!" And they're like, "Oh, captured, I guess."
It
Um,
makes me laugh how like easily they got captured though. 'Cause, like Mark's got two stakes. It's like, did you not think to
uh,
use one?
maybe he
Like
didn't. Maybe he, unlike us, obviously we've got the benefit of being, 40 odd years later on. You and I know that a human will die to a stake as easily as a vampire, but
exactly.
maybe that's knowledge they just didn't have. Like, same as they'd know very little about HD television, or I don't know, certain words that you probably shouldn't say about people.
Mm.
Um, One of those pieces of knowledge they just didn't have. Then we have to give them credit for the time they were living in. So he
Yeah.
doesn't know what to deal with Straker. Either that or he knows, Mr. Straker, a stake wouldn't work against you. It's most of your name.
These are
Um,
for the vampires, not you.
yeah, I'm really trying to save this. Because
Don't think you can reuse them.
you never know. Like, some pieces of vampire lore in a classic Buffy, where a vampire will turn to ash, stakes really reusable. But some
Exactly.
some things you have to keep them in. They'll come back if you take them out. You gotta leave them in there.
Mm, that's
Um,
true.
so he doesn't want to waste it anyway. And what he basically does is he foolishly, Straker, a lot like Mark's dad, hasn't taken an interest in his hobbies, and he does some proper, like, a kid's version of tying up. Like, if you're playing a game where, like, you're any type of game when you're a kid where you're tying someone up and they're going to try and escape from it, like they're a prisoner of some kind, and you
Yep.
do the most insanely complicated version of tying up that people can immediately escape from. He's like tied to this chair, and his arms are round him. There's like a spider web of ropes all around him, probably 90% ineffective at actually locking him into any kind of chair. And he's like, right, I would pay to see the kid that can escape from these ropes. I'm off to take Susan off scene to capture her elsewhere now. So
Yeah. Just gonna give her to, well, we assume just give her to the master, but
yeah,
we don't see where she goes.
but he
Yeah.
implies that there is somewhere. She's like, "Where are you taking me?" He says, "Oh, you'll see. It's actually really significant where you're going."
Mm,
Probably it'd be really important for anyone watching this to know where you honestly couldn't describe it. You'd probably have to see what was happening to you to get the full context of it. Otherwise, it'd be quite ambiguous until the closing seconds of this film. So just strap yourself in, Susan, because that place I haven't really described but have alluded to being very important is where you're going. So be ready. This kiddie's going to be tied up until then, because if there's one thing that this all-powerful vampire that we've seen confront several people at once doesn't like, it's being overfaced by a number of things. He has to deal with
exactly.
people one at a time. So he takes her off. Again, having ignored Mark's capabilities, he doesn't know that he's going to immediately escape from those things. Genuinely, honestly, escape from any knot you want to tie. I'll escape in seconds, Dad. I'll escape from this rope faster than you can deal a quarterly tax return. And he does. He escapes very quickly, nips out, and reunites with our writer and hero, old Ben,
Oh, and
um,
the doctor
and the
as well.
doctor, because
Susan's dad.
yeah, Susan's dad, the doctor. Um, they then turn up and say, "What are you doing? Going this out? We were coming to attack them." Said, "Oh, funnily enough, I was in here all day. Why didn't you guys get an earlier start? You should have been here first thing in the morning when you had the most daylight.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
You've come in sort of late afternoon, early evening. Also, what neighbours was on? There's no time for that."
They're just procrastinating. They need like a really tight deadline to
Yeah,
work to get anything done.
really. Like, I'm putting it out there. You know what? If you were in that hospital when you got that last vampire, pull an all-nighter, actually.
Mm,
Just really crack on and get all your prep done and be there first thing.
exactly.
Certainly be there before lunchtime. If you haven't made it by lunchtime, I think, you
I
know what,
mean,
knock it on the head.
sunrise,
Yeah,
go.
Yeah,
sunrise. Just go.
getting
You
at
have all
sunrise.
day.
Yeah, and if you can't, genuinely find a sensible time to cut off and say, you know what, knuckle down tonight, and then we'll do this again tomorrow.
Exactly.
Like literally baptize your shower or something, or your bath, and just stay there in that water that's very holy all night. Or like sleep in church, do something absolutely vampire proof. Go on a sunbed.
Just tattoo crosses all over you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, do everything that you possibly can to
Oh,
vampire proof you.
go to a tattoo studio and get like a cross on your neck.
Exactly.
And that would be the only one. So okay, you can but be aha. I'd be like,
Yeah.
no!
Just wait until they get so close, burn them, and then they vaporize. Done.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorted.
Buy turtlenecks and sew garlic into them. Like do
Yeah.
all of this stuff. Um, so they get together. They say, oh, Mark goes, oh, sun's going down now, and Susan's in there. He's taken her off to a place. He wasn't clear where it was. Um, can we go in? Should we go and rescue her? We better had. Uh,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Susan's dad, the doctor, does fall foul of the interior design of the house here.
I think that was like a wall purposely built to impale people. Like it's the only red wall in the house. So like, is that paint or is that blood from all the impaling
All the
that
impaling,
they're doing?
yeah, all
Yeah.
the impaling that's gone on there, and also he's just covered it in sharp sticks and horns
Yeah.
at the end
Because
of a
you
long corridor that someone could be shoved along.
yeah, I think, it's great design work if you're designing a murder house, I guess.
Yeah,
But at this point as well, I feel like Straker might not just be human. He seems very superhuman, the fact that he just like picks up the doctor,
and just shoves him along. Yeah,
just shoves him.
you do some dead weighting, or you'd fall over, or you try and do something, right? Like rather than just
Yeah,
no, don't shove me into the. Not too late. I've shoved you into the.
yeah. He could have kicked, like tried to headbutt him, like headbutts work really well in this movie.
Yeah.
But no, he just sort of like gets picked up like a pencil and then just
Yeah.
straight on.
So I am to die, I guess. And he pierces him on the spikes, and that's it for him. However, for all of Straker's other abilities, um, he didn't see the scene earlier where the sheriff said, "I'm not going to be helpful in the last scene of this movie because I've accepted that there's vampires. There's loads of them actually, so I'm going to Florida. Like I'm leaving town with my family. Quite lucky that none of my family have been got at this point. We'll give you a pistol though as a symbolic token of my involvement here. So if you want to take that with you, that'd be great." And they gives him a gun. Not much use against vampires, but very good. Well, I say very good, pseudo good against Straker. They do have to use all the bullets to shoot him, and
Yeah.
then it's a little bit like when you're playing like an old video game, like a PS1 video game or something like that, where they haven't necessarily got the technology to code in that bullets do damage to people, but once they've hit a certain amount of damage, they will fall down and die. Because it's like shoot, 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 and he's like, I'm still coming down the stairs actually to menace you. I'm probably going to put you on this wall of spikes that I got the doctor on.
Still have enough strength now to do
Yeah,
that. It's fine.
but unfortunately, after he's had enough bullets, he does go, well, I'm afraid I've been reduced to zero energy. So and then he
Yeah.
dies.
The way he dies was actually really, I thought it was quite comedic. Like
Yeah.
he just kind of keels over on the side. And you're like, oh, okay. But again, I felt because it took so many bullets for him to die, does he have some superhuman ability? Is he completely human? I don't know.
Maybe if you read the Stephen King book, there'll be a bit where they go and examine him afterwards, and they look into, oh, he turns out he was a Frankenstein of some description.
Yeah.
Another classic monster, especially because, you know, for a film which is about vampires, we have an awful lot of shots in this movie of a full moon, and we hear a wolf howling.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm pretty sure as well, like the dog like going back to the beginning of the film ish, the graveyard digger's dog gets killed.
Yeah,
But I'm pretty sure Barlow wasn't there when that happened. So like,
maybe
did Straker kill the
maybe
dog?
maybe Straker killed the dog and use it
Yeah.
to desecrate the ground.
Oh
Um,
yeah, maybe.
but yeah,
I thought,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. My new theory that you've inspired me, Holly. I think the theory I'm going to work on is that Straker is some kind of a Frankenstein. So
Yeah, I
he's a
think so.
Frankenstein, and there are werewolves implied by their howling, even though they play no bearing to this story. Maybe it's the werewolves that are currently keeping Susan locked up in her unknown scene. Um,
Exactly.
Barlow, though, has been home alone in because he's down in the basement in that sideboard we had being moved earlier. Um, but he's sawed through all the stairs on the way to the basement. So when the lads try and go down there,
Yeah, hurts his ankle.
almost fall down the stairs. Oh, blooming hell, the stairs are gone. They're tumbling out. Old old no, it's Mark that falls down the stairs, and Ben sort of hangs off the doorway. He's like,
Yeah.
go right down there, Mark. I just hurt my ankle. Actually, he goes, oh well, we've come too far now. Can you just
Yeah,
can
just
you
get up.
can you act that it's broken for like the first couple of steps and then just be normal for a little bit?
Yeah.
Um, they open up the coffin. Old Barlow is asleep in there. He opens his eyes and is like, um,
What are you gonna do?
yeah, he uses a bit like he is like literally there is no warm up on like his hypnosis powers aren't like a fluorescent bulb. They don't take a minute like a low energy. They're straight on. They're straight on like an old school planet destroying bulb. Because Mark is a little bit like straight away is a bit wampy about it. So Ben shoves him so hard.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was like, I was really shocked when he shoves him. I don't know whether that was intentional
He goes
or
flying
not.
so far across the room because like I guess briefly hypnotized Mark goes, no, don't knife him with the stake, and he just shoves him so far across the room. There are wrestlers working today that have not sold a push that hard, and he's like, ah, he goes flying across the room, um, and he just gets him, he stakes him, and
Yeah. He
he
doesn't die straight away though, which is what I was surprised at. He has to like hammer in the stake
yeah,
and like keeps going.
you've really got to get through it. He's tough as old boots, is Barlow. He's dried out like a jerky, so
Yeah.
you've really got to wheedle it in there. Slightly recovered from his um, brief ordeal with Barlow eyes. Um, we see other vampires waking up in the distance, and there's another great. We've made fun of some of this stuff because there are bits that have aged, but Tobe Hooper does these great shots, and
Mm.
like to see the other vampires, like the they're like ghouls. They're not quite as established vampires as old Barlow, and they're crawling towards the door. Mark has recovered enough to go shit, and he kind of shuts
Yeah.
the door, and the padlock that took him bloody ages to bash off the door as well. That's a quality padlock they've got in there for all the antiques then in the house. They had one new thing, and it was that padlock, and he manages to basically put it back in and go
Yeah.
that'll hold up a padlock of that quality. They ain't getting in.
I
Um,
really liked that scene because you can't see the vampires or like the ghouls until they're quite close.
yeah, they're
And
coming up.
it's
They
only
get
then
little
you realize
eyes.
that, yeah, they're slowly creeping towards them. You're just like, oh no, is Mark gonna die? Is he gonna get got? Like, what's gonna happen? But yeah, we don't see Susan in there either. So I was like, where is Susan?
Yeah, it's an important place that she's gone, but we're not. He's obviously had. I don't know how long old Straker had to like take her really far away, but also
Yeah.
where there were vampires. So they do that. Do we toy briefly with the idea that people might get better now Barlow is dead, or
Um, I don't think so. I think yeah, I guess like unless you're if you haven't turned into a ghoul or a vampire, I guess if you're like on the precipice of turning into
yeah,
one,
like
maybe you would get better.
if you were just poorly, like, but yeah,
Yeah.
most of them stay as vampires. Again, it's something they entertain in. Spoilers for the end of this one we're about to spoil anyway, but in the in the remake again, we have a scene where he does find Susan looking like a vampire in a coffin earlier, the day before actually. They go, oh no, she's been got on, is turned into a vampire, and they don't stab her with a stake, saying, well, she might get better if we get rid of the head vampire, everyone else might recover. And then we quickly find out that isn't the case
Yeah.
after they've got Barlow. But in this case, they just kind of accidentally burn the house down.
No, that was so intentional. And I thought this was actually really funny because they were like, they've killed Barlow at this point. They've locked the other vampires in the little like basement bit.
Yeah.
And we don't know if they're, have they died because Barlow's dead? We're not sure. And they just don't even bother looking for Susan. They're just like, set the house on fire.
And I thought for a
Can't find
second,
Susan. Oh well.
as they burnt the house down on fire as their revenge for just Barlow really fucking them off and banging that kid's parents' heads together, they burn it. And then there's a bit where it kind of zooms in on like a basement window as we see the glass shatter.
Yeah,
And I thought, oh, is this going to be the tragedy that Susan, who you loved, has been? I mean, I know there's bummer endings for a lot of horror movies. I thought this might set a new record. Like, if because my immediate thought was, oh, I mean, are you implying that you just burned Susan in a fire?
you just murdered Susan accidentally. Like, what?
You should have looked,
But
shouldn't we? Yeah,
yeah.
we were so caught up in the fact, you're really psyched that you just killed this. You've done it. You killed a vampire, and then it's oh, burn the house down with Susan in it, haven't I?
Oh well.
But that isn't what happens. They kind of go, we get a lovely bit of throwaway dialogue where it's got where they go, wind's blowing towards town, everything's going to catch fire.
Yeah. It's
Um,
really interesting because I like rewatching some of it. I think Mark initially when he was doing his little play, he talks about a fire that was going towards the
yes,
house, and then the wind changed and it blew back, and the house is fine. And like Ben is really set on destroying the house because he thinks it's evil and like it attracts evil. So yeah, it's interesting that that's caught on fire and now it's spreading towards town.
running towards the town. That's a good point.
Mm.
I missed that. This is what you get when you watch films late at night, I guess. But um, yeah, it was with without the sadness of have you just accidentally burned Susan, who we have no necessary appreciation for that. Because also, how would Barlow have turned her into a vampire? Because that was all the space of the same day. Because he caught her
Exactly.
and said, you've got to go."
Yeah.
He ain't waking up. He was fast asleep.
That's what I was confused about as well, because there are points as where they like just move Barlow's when he's in the little like box thing,
When they moved
right
his
at the
sideboard,
beginning. Yeah, when they move the sideboard into the basement and they're like, oh, someone's upstairs. And you think, but it's not Straker because Straker's out kidnapping little kids. So it's like, is there something else? Like another vampire, maybe?
yeah,
Like lurking in the house?
maybe they didn't get the head vampire. Um,
Maybe.
we'll touch on the we'll touch on the remake again very briefly. In the remake, the priest hasn't disappeared. He has been made into basically a new Straker because Straker's been killed um, already. That's Donald Sutherland, and he's been hanged and bashed with a chair leg. Um, so the priest gets turned basically into his new servant. Um, he is there as the vampires crawl out of their holes and the goodies escape from town in cars. He basically is there as the proxy for the vampire, going, God damn, he literally shakes his fist as they drive out of town and says, like, God damn you, Rob Lowe, God damn you to hell. Uh, if you're damning people from God, I mean, as a priest, he's not a vampire as a priest, he's been made a human familiar. Although the vampire did make him drink his blood, which made him go funny, as well as giving him some hypnosis. But then I thought, if that priest is shouting about God, would that not upset all the vampires that are like on your team now? But like, oh, careful.
Don't say
language.
the G word.
Please, if you could, we're not a fan of this as vampires. And also, can you change your outfit? You're still dressed as a priest. It's deeply offensive. And they couldn't go around and see him. They'd be like,
No.
"Oh, need to get the priest who works for us to do some." It's in the church, can't go in there. Um, yeah, but in this version, the guys are just on their way while the town burns, and they kind of say, "Hey, tell you what, the shitloads of vampires. This will force them out of their holes." Um, I don't know what their plan is. They just plan to drive away and hope they get got like at the end of midnight mass, where like, oh, we're stuck outside. Um, yeah, we're so they go out of town, and then we fast forward to the exact scene we had in the beginning, where our two main lads, so Ben and Mark, are there just palling around, being mates in Mexico, stocking up on holy water, which now glows to indicate that vampires are nearby. It does like a little
Yeah.
signal for them. They go, "Oh, there's vampires nearby. Let's let's look out for this." They go home, and it's only Susan.
Yeah.
Took her ages.
Susan.
Took her ages to catch up with them.
She looks amazing as well, which I thought was quite interesting because you know all the other vampires are like purple or blue,
Yeah,
and she's just
she looks
very
great.
beautiful.
She looks great
Yeah,
as a vampire. Yeah,
silk nightgown.
yeah. She's gone the other way with it. She's had a real glow up. Not that
Yeah,
she was hideous ever, but she's really she's taken it. Sometimes things will suit people, Sometimes someone might find out they need glasses and be like, "Oh, is this going to change my look?" It turns out it really suits them. So
yeah, lifestyle change.
yeah, so one of these things for Susan, it's taken to her very well. She kind of does get into, well, we think she has got into old Ben's head a lot. We said, "Oh, we can just live forever. I know we only really dated for like a week or so, but we've got a really deep connection here. So we could just be forever if we just go for it now." And she goes to bite his neck. And I thought for a second that Mark was going to come in and save the day, and it'd be his turn.
Yeah,
It kind of establishes their relationship as working together and how they help each other out and how he has grown into a great vampire hunter. But no, actually, it's just Ben looks like he's going to be got, but then he had a stake in his hand the whole time and is like, "Ha!" and gets her, and she gets dusted as well. Um, Similar in the remake, except they don't go out of they don't leave the house. She's basically upstairs in the house already a vampire when they've killed Barlow, and she turns to get Mark and he stabs her in the back through the heart, and she's gone from there. And the end of the remake um, goes to 2 years later, where he pushes the priest who turned bad out of a window in Detroit. They're both in hospital because Ben has been shot. But Mark does prove his worth there. He goes and suffocates the priest to death in hospital, and then goes to see Ben as he dies in hospital. And he has a final word with him, say, "We've done it. We assume we killed all the other vampires off camera, and this is the end." And then just before he dies, 2000s, Ben leans forward and goes, "Hunting season is over." And then he like goes, "Ah," dies.
oh,
Dies
so
in,
dramatic.
yeah. But that isn't how this one ends. This one ends with basically their mission will continue. Um, Mark and Ben will return in sequel type. Well, return to Salem's Lot, which I haven't seen. I was going to ask, do you know what happens in the sequel?
I don't. I think I'm gonna watch that next though, because I really want to know what happens in their story.
Yeah, and I need to know like again, I've dropped the ball on this one. I should see like, is Return to Salem's Lot a Stephen King book as well? Or is it just a pure film activity? But I want to see what these guys do when they go back.
Yeah, it's interesting that they've left it as if vampires are now hunting them.
Yeah,
And I find that, yeah, that concept quite interesting. Like, are they trying to seek revenge because they've killed the master vampire? Like, why are they hunting them instead of just
Love,
being like, I guess we're by ourselves now, guys?
oh man, it'd be like imagine doing it like a few years later. We could assume that not changing his name. I guess the vampire is now Gary Barlow releasing a series of like well-known pop songs in the 90s and then Wine in the 2020s. That's him just knocking about, being a big blue human. Yeah, what a time. But yeah, there there we there we have it. I mean, as is tradition, we should probably go for a little bit of the name game, right? Are you
Oh
you're
no,
you're you're well versed in this, right?
I am. Well, I know how it works, but I'm not very good at it.
Okay, so let me get the synopsis up real quick, and then I will throw it. So the original synopsis is Ben Mears returns to his hometown to write a book about supposedly haunted Marston House. When people around the Marston House start dying, mysteriously Mears discovers the owner of the mansion is actually a vampire who's turning them into an army of undead slaves. Won't necessarily do that much of a of a synopsis, but I will say so. In this first movie, Ben Mears has returned to his hometown to write a book about the supposedly haunted Marston House. However, when he gets there, he finds that the wood has all deteriorated quite badly because it's got really poor damp conditions.
Salem's Grot.
Well, not quite. I was going for Salem's Rot, but I will accept
Rot.
Grot. I guess Grot would be if he found loads of vampire pornography under his under his mattress. So next up, then, um, Ben Mears has returned to his hometown to write a book, but actually, um, having actually had a better connection with his art teacher than his English teacher in this reality, he just does a bit of doodling instead.
Hmm.
Bit of doodling, maybe a couple of casual notes. No real formal writing. He's just throwing stuff in there quite willy nilly, not really putting the commitment into it.
Oh, I don't know. So much pressure when you have to actually answer someone.
Much easier when you're
I
just
don't
shouting
know.
at an iPod, right? But
Yeah, exactly.
Salem's Jot, I was going for there. He's just
Jot.
jotting these things down real quickly. So next up, a writer returns. Ben Mears returns to his hometown to write a book about it and the old Marston House, and then he turns out that the house is owned by a vampire, a descendant of the previous vampire owner of the house, who, furious that a young boy was able to evade his traps, has really mastered tying people up with ropes in inescapable ways.
Or uh
Barlow has joined the Scouts. He has learned a lot of rope tying
oh,
techniques to find.
Salem's not.
Salem's not correct.
Nuts. God
Oh,
won.
there we go. I mean, no pressure, Holly. Have you got anyone to throw him away? If you've got any words that you want to throw there,
Mm, I mean, the only one I could think of is a bit rubbish.
that,
Ben
that,
Mears
that
returns.
that's a low bar.
Okay. Um, Ben Mears returns to his hometown only to find that it's been overrun by baby vampires.
Salem's Tots or Salem's Tot. Yes.
Yes.
That was brilliant. I guess the only thing for us to do now, Holly, is to rate the movie. So, what are you scoring this one?
Oh, I did have to think about this for a little while. Personally, I would rate it as a C, I think. I really liked it for what it is. But I think there's like quite a few inconsistencies. So I would rate it as a C.
Yeah, that's great. I think I'm gonna go maybe slightly higher. Again, you've heard me say this on here beforehand. I think I come away from the film with one thought, and then I talk about it for an hour or so, and then think, actually, maybe I like a little bit more of this now. And we talked a little about the story and some of the things, and it's not just powerful moves of Barlow, but there's a lot of good Tobe Hooper film techniques in here as well. The things that have aged about it are, you know, are obvious, and there are things about the attitudes and the acting and a lot of the effects that are of the time, like the people fading away into nothingness. But that said, for a film from the late 70s, he's still a creepy looking vampire, right? I
Oh yeah.
want to bump into him in a dark alley. Um, and do we have some of the other effects, like when the ghouls are coming up, all that great scene of tension when we have just that affair in the, you know, what should be quite a comical scene between the silk boxers and the crushed velvet PJs that the lady like could be quite like a funny and silly scene, but it's effectively done. There's some stuff to enjoy about this, and it has left me with a real hankering to finish the several other books I'm halfway through reading and read Salem's Lot, to the point where I might have a quick nip on the Kindle before I go to bed and download it. I'm not going to read it for months, if not years, but buying it, I feel like I've taken a step forward towards catching up on it. Um, yeah, I think in recognition of those techniques, I'm going to go a C plus,
C
a
plus.
little higher on a C plus there. So there we have it for another week. Holly, while I pull up the list of Patreons from Ben's script here to read through, um, where can people find you and what you're working on? Should they so wish to, or should you wish for them to find you online or anywhere else?
I mean, I don't really do a lot on socials just because like I'm a PhD student, so I don't really have a lot of creative stuff out there. Um, but if anyone's interested, my partner does like really cool, sort of scary-ish drawings. And he's on Instagram and posts regularly. So if you want to give Drekash Art a follow, that's DREKAS art on Instagram. Yeah, just check his stuff out. It's really cool.
Yeah, I can second that. I've done some work with him myself, and very good it is too. From his side, I'm not going to comment on mine. That's for other people to say whether it's good or not. But um, yeah, he's fantastic. You should check it out, and hopefully, Holly, this will be. I think we owe you a session where you come and join the whole gang at some point as well. So hopefully, if this hasn't been a terrible time, you'll come and join us again in the future as well, and we'll talk about another movie that you can check off your watch list.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great.
Brilliant. In the meantime, before I officially thank you and sign off for the day, let me thank our Patreon supporters. So, if you enjoy the show and would like to help us keep the lights on here, there is a variety of tiers you can support us on at Patreon. We go from everything from, you know, just chucking in a few coins to help keep the show running, to merch and loads of other tiers and bonus episodes and early releases and ad-free feeds and all of that good stuff. But let me give a thanks to our current Patreons: Troy, Bush, Nick Spill, Julia Bilgren, Leslie Carlo, Ollie Child, Lane Spencer, Pazuzu, Toby Miller, Laura Kendrick, Stephen Christopher, Ben Scaife, and John Crennan patron against as well. I've read those backwards in the way to the way Ben normally reads them, but you know, we're mixing up. We're all individuals here. So thank you to all of you guys. Thank you for Taj Easton for our theme music. If you want to chat to us online, you can follow us at horror_hangout_ over on Twitter. It's hard to get those handles these days. You can also find us at Horror Hangout Pod over on Instagram as well. Do a search for Horror Hangout. You'll find us anywhere. I'm Andy CT Writes. Ben is at Ben_Arrington. Luke of Condor, he is still around. When he's finished with his audiobook recording, he shall make another glorious return, not just for quiz episodes. Holly, all that remains for me to do is thank you for being a right horror dude.
Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully you join us again soon. Oh, next week, everybody, a little seasonal treat for you. We are going to be doing Silent Night, Deadly Night with previous guest Johan from the Trash Tapes is going to be back with us next week. Possibly we're working out the logistics. I'll be live in the same room as Ben as I record it as well. So for people who mostly listen to the audio, that'll make no difference to you unless our audio quality sounds differently. But for those watching on video, my goodness, what a treat. Thanks again, Holly. Bye now for everybody else. Bye for now.